Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and some good insight on things related to prison, and I'm going to share some of that with y'all today. If you happen to like this video, definitely be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, and most importantly, be sure to hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you'll be notified ASAP Rocky, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, man, you might be new to the page. Like I told y'all, man, I rap. Do not get it twisted. The flow is none like Curtis Blow. I got a song called Never Gave Me Therapy. It's on all major streaming sites. I got a song called Never Gave Me Therapy. The remix, the audio for that is on my YouTube page. Also, go to my YouTube playlist, scroll down to gas stations, and you will find all my music there. And I swear, you're going to be pleasantly surprised. Now, let's hop up into this video right here. So, you know, I've been doing my YouTube, man, for a minute, and I get a lot of requests. A lot of people always asking me, what happens, what's it like when a dude who's in prison gets sick? And so I'm going to break that down for you today, man. You know, the healthcare system up in there is somewhat a joke, man. You know, the healthcare system is only as good as the people that's working in there and the people that care, you know. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is you have some people in there who just view it as just a job, and that's all. You know, they feel that the people locked in prison don't have anything coming, and you know, they treat them inhumane sometimes. And then you have other people in there who really care about helping people, and they afford them the same type of care that they would afford an individual if they was free in the free world. But of course, you know, the some of the things that we have in there is not as good, you know. But anyway, so let me explain to y'all how the procedure works. Now, initially when I came to prison in 1996, it was free. If you had to go see the doctor, it was free. Then maybe, I don't know exactly how long I was in there, maybe a year or two. Then they put where they started charging a $5 copayment to go see the doctor. And so the procedure, it goes like this. When you want to fill out the doctor, when you want to see the doctor, excuse me, you have to fill out a medical call slip. You fill that out, you tell them your name, you know, your CDC number, the problem that you're experiencing, what building you in, all that stuff. Then you go drop it in this little box. They come pick the mail up. Then within a day or 2 or 3 days, normally within a day or two, you would get what's known as a ducket. And that ducket would be telling you to report the next day to the MTA. I'm not exactly sure what that acronym is. I believe it's for medical technician assistant or something like that. But anyway, you know, when you hear me talking about the MTA or other people, other California prison YouTubers talking about the MTA, is basically the doctor's office or the nurses where they're over there at. So like I said, you get a ducket, you report the next morning to go to the MTA. Now, when you go to the MTA, you go over there, they take all your vitals. You fill out another little quick small form that you fill out, you know, you fill out the form, they take your vitals and all that type of stuff. And then you talk to a nurse. You know, the nurse will ask you, you know, what type of problems you're experiencing. And more times than not, she'll put you on the list to see the doctor. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these prisons may have at least 1,000 or more convicts on one particular yard. And out of those 1,000 or so convicts, or even sometimes more, even maybe 1,200, you normally may have anywhere from like 3, 4, or 5 doctors assigned to see all these convicts, you know. And so, of course, you know, the waiting list is going to be it's going to be long. It all depends on, like I say, the severity of your ailment, you know. So you know, these doctors, one doctor he may have, and I believe the system that they use is one of the doctors, he may be assigned to see the first maybe 9 or 10 if your name falls within the alphabet of the first, you know, the letters between the ninth and 10th letter, and then so on and so forth is how we determine what doctor we may see. And like I said, if your problem is not super serious, you may not see a doctor for another 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even longer than that. It just all depends on what institution that you're at and how many people are applying to see the doctor. Now, the reason I believe that they started adding a copayment, a $5 copayment to see the doctor, is because they felt that a lot of times you had convicts going to see the doctor. It was unnecessarily. And so how that $5 copayment would work is if you had money on your books, or you received any money within a 30-day period of seeing a doctor, they would pull $5 off your books. Now, for an individual who's free, he may be thinking that $5 is a whole lot of money. I mean, $5 is not a whole lot of money. But I've seen many individuals in prison refuse to go to the doctor because they didn't want to pay that $5 copayment fee for different reasons. $5 for a person in there who doesn't have a lot of money, that's a lot of money. $5, when soups are 20 cents, that's however many soups that is. That's 25 soups, maybe a jar of coffee, maybe some oatmeal, something that they really need, because we're not fed extremely well in prison. But like I said, once they put that $5 copayment on there, I think it did change some people from wanting to see the doctor so quick as they would have if they didn't have the $5 copayment. And sometimes, people chose not to go see the doctor because of the $5 copayment, because for the most part, it took a long time to see the doctor. And if you just had a cold or something like that, they wasn't going to do anything. They wasn't going to do anything for you. They may at the most give you some aspirin. That was their way of dealing with a whole lot of stuff. Just giving you some aspirin and telling you to, maybe lay down and relax or whatever. So it just all depends. Prisons are different. Like I said, prisons are different. I know for me, one of the huge problems that I had at most institutions that I was being housed at was being able to see the eye doctor. Without my glasses, I do not see well at all. I can't read my letters. I couldn't read books and stuff like that. So maintaining my glasses was something that was extremely important to me. Now, normally at most institutions, they only going to have one eye doctor. And maybe that eye doctor's not there every day. He might come Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, in order to see the eye doctor, sometimes it literally took me 3 or 4 months to see the eye doctor. So, if you happen to get into a fight and get your glasses broke or something like that, which that happened to me a couple times, what you could do, if you had your prescription on file, you could have your family or friends from outside go get you some glasses, go send them in. They would have to highlight them, marked for medical or something like that. And then once they got them and looked at them, they may call you over in 2 or 3 weeks and pass your glasses out. But keep in mind, that's still an extremely long time. The inconvenience of not being able to see, having these headaches and all this type of stuff for 2 or 3 weeks, not being able to read and stuff like that, waking up with a headache, going to sleep with a headache because I didn't have my glasses. My eyes are straining all day long to see. That's an extremely long time. And then, like I said, you don't know exactly when they're going to come in. So, and now once we was finally able to get to the doctor and see a doctor, then it just all depending on the type of doctor you got to see. Some doctors was lenient and trying to accommodate us. Some doctors was cynical. They felt that a lot of people were faking and a lot of people didn't need the things they was requiring. And sometimes, of course, they would shoot you down or deny you on whatever you was asking for. If you really had a serious ailment and you went over there, you may or you may not be seen that day. It just all depends, like I said, on how they felt, how they chose to basically diagnose you and to assess how you were feeling. And of course, sometimes they can't always do that by looking at you or listening to you. And if you stick around for a minute, I'm gonna give you a good story about a friend of mine who almost lost his life due to negligent health care in prison. But sometimes, it just all depended on, like I said, the ailment. Now, of course, sometimes you did have convicts going to see the doctor for things that was fraudulent, like you may have a particular job in prison that you don't like. You may be in the kitchen where you have to lift a lot of heavy stuff or whatever. Like for me, I'm gonna keep it real. I didn't really like to do a whole lot of work in prison because I felt I was never coming out. The pay number was maybe 6 cents, 10 cents. Why do I want to be slaving in the kitchen for 10 cents, an hour? Possibly getting into it with other convicts behind these small issues, to me, it just wasn't worth it. I was fortunate enough to have family and friends who looked out for me. So I avoided certain jobs, and a good way to avoid certain jobs was you could go to the doctor. You could, hey man, my wrist is hurting, my back is hurting, or whatever. The doctor may look at you, examine you a minute, then he'll give you what was known as a chrono. Sometimes that would say, hey, this dude can't lift over 5 pounds. He can't lift over 10 pounds. He can't stand longer than 20 minutes. Stuff like that, So it all just depends on what doctor you happen to be, what doctor you happen to fall up under that you was going to see, and whether he was, whether he was a good doctor or whether he believed that there was a lot of faking and lying and stuff going on up in there, So it just all depends, man. At one point when I was locked up, I actually had a job as a porter in the diet kitchen, and the diet kitchen also was a part of the hospital ward up there. And I seen on many occasions where the nurses who worked up there literally could care less about the people who was up in there. You had 2 or 3 different wings up in there. You had 2 different dorms. You had 2 dorms, and those were people up there who wasn't doing as bad. A friend of mine, he was up there. He had got into a fight, and he had got his jaw broken, so he was on a special diet. That was another luxury of being able to work up there in that kitchen or be up there. They had special food and stuff that wasn't served in general population. I'm talking about cheeseburgers, pineapples. Sometimes the lady who would work up there would make homemade pizza from scratch up there. They had apple juice, grape juice, just a whole lot of stuff. They had fish. Basically they had street restaurant food being cooked up there. And then of course you had convicts working up there who was making their own special stuff. So basically it was lovely. That was one of the best jobs that I had working up there. Then outside of those 2 dormitories that they had, 2 dorms that housed people who were maybe not going to be there so long, down a long hallway, they had some other rooms where they would put people when their ailments was more critical. And I happened to have a friend who I had been on the yard with for at least 3 or 4 years, maybe more than that, by the name of Shoes. Now, he kept having some problems with his back. And so he had came up there a couple of times, and eventually he came up there. Unfortunately, he stayed and he ended up passing away. Me and Shoes used to talk. We used to play tennis together from time to time. He was a bit older. I would probably say in his maybe his mid to late 50s, 60s. He didn't really look it, so it was hard to tell. But I remember several times him being up there in the bed, unable to move, and he would press the button requesting that the nurse come and change him. He had urinated and used the bathroom and stuff on himself. And then so maybe, like I said, I was a porter, which basically I'm up there just cleaning, dumping the trash, sweeping the hallway. Sometimes I'd come by there. He say, "Hey, chill, man, come here, man. Can you come here, please?" Now, really, they didn't want us talking to the convict patients up there. But like I said, this was my partner, man. I knew him from the yard for several years, so I just wasn't gonna ignore him and do the things that they wanted us to do. And so he asked me, could you go tell the nurse, man, I need to be changed, man. He said, I've been sitting here lying in my own urine or whatever for the last 15, 20 minutes. I didn't press the bell two or three times, So I'd go up there to the nurse station. I say, excuse me, the guy down in, in dorm, 145 or wherever he was housed, bed 20 would like his bed changed. Now, all the nurses would be up there. They had a lot of Filipino nurses at that particular institution. Not to say that they're negligent, but they really seem to not care a lot of times. Their attitude was extremely cavalier towards, getting those guys the things that they needed to have in a timely fashion. And so, a lot of times they tell me, okay, yeah, I'll get right to it. I'd leave, go back down the hall, do whatever I do. I'd come back another 10, 15 minutes. They'd all still be up there laughing and talking. I'd go down there, I'd ask Shoes, hey, Shoes, they come yet? No, they ain't came yet. I never forget one time it seemed like he was going through bouts of dementia. and we happened to be in that particular dorm dumping the trash or doing something. It was me and another Filipino nurse, and he called me over there and asked me if he could have some more ice cream or something, with his dinner. Now, that particular day, we didn't even have any ice cream, so he was hallucinating or something. But the nurse, she told me, oh, don't worry about it. Come on out here. Don't he's okay. Ignore him. I said, hey, no, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, this is my friend. I was actually on the yard with him, so just seeing people like that being mistreated sometimes, it definitely was upsetting, and that's what they wanted us to do, basically, at sometimes ignore certain requests from those guys, and they didn't understand that, I had a personal connection with some of those guys up there, and I'll probably later give you guys a story on that job working up in there. I started working up there strictly to, well, one of my friends called me up there strictly because we had a lot of cell phones up there, unbeknownst to me until I got up there. But I'm going to give y'all that cell phone story real soon too, man. And so anyway, yeah, this is the type of stuff that went on up in there, like I said. And it all depended on sometimes which doctor you was fortunate or in some cases misfortunate enough to see. Now, if you had certain type of cases, they would sometimes refer you to a specialist, and eventually, maybe in 3 or 4 months, they would take you to a doctor on the street. I had went to the street doctor a couple of times, so the process for that is basically they would call you over there in the morning. You wouldn't know when you was going. They handcuff you, put you in the van, and take you to the nearest big city street doctor. Sometimes I've heard of dudes getting major surgeries, for cancer and other type of things that they couldn't perform at these smaller hospitals and stuff like that was located inside the prison, so it just, like I said, it just all depends. It all depends, man. But the healthcare up there was definitely questionable at best, a lot of times, like I said, the doctors, they felt that a majority of the convicts coming over there seeking medical attention was exaggerating, or and for whatever reason, the doctors wasn't extremely compliant sometimes. For the most part, I can say that I always had a lot of doctors who was actually cooperative and didn't really try to thwart the request of the things that I wanted in particular. I just happened to have a couple of good doctors, so the case on to my friend, man. I had a good friend, man, and like I told y'all, if y'all been paying attention to my stories, man, I used to play tennis. Now, this good friend who I'm talking about, this is KG from Dodge City. Like I told y'all, man, he thought I wasn't no good in tennis, so he started calling me Arthur Trash, King of the Bums, So, yeah, he's the dude that named me Arthur Trash. At one point in time, me and him was selling, extremely good dude. I think he ended up doing 29, 30 years, somewhere around there. He's out now, man. So, anyway, on this particular Thursday, he started feeling a pain in his side. He started feeling a pain in his side, and while he was at work around 2:30, somewhere up in there. Once he got back to the cell, we had dinner or whatever, the pain was feeling more severe and all that type of stuff. So I believe the next day he happened to go, he put in a request to see to go see to the doctor. Now, like I told you guys before, sometimes if your request is severe, you can go over there right then and there and say, hey man, I'm having a lot of pain or whatever. So he goes and he does this. Now, the doctors, for whatever reason, or the nurses that he got to see, they were saying, hey, okay, well, you know what, it's probably this, it's probably that. They basically wasn't taking him serious. And so I believe they may have gave him some aspirin or something like that. So he go back to the cell. The next day the pain is increasing. It's hurting him more. And so he went back over there again. They said, hey, we just saw you yesterday. We got you on the doctor's list, and whatever. They was basically just kind of like brushing him off. So now one tactic of the convicts in prison is, when they're doing this, when the medical staff is doing this stall tactic, come back, we got you on the waiting list. If you happen to fall out right then and there on the yard, somebody's gonna scream, man down, man down. Then of course they're gonna put the yard down. They're gonna have the ambulance come over there and get you, or the MTA, the nurses ladies, and that is one way to be seen immediately and have your issues addressed, because now you didn't fell out. You're making them, acknowledge that you're going through stuff. So I think he actually went man down a time or two, and they even sent him back. I know at one point they told him that the pain in his side was probably kidney stones, and they sent him back, and don't worry about it. We'll see you. We'll see you in a week or two when we can get to you. Finally, the pain was so severe, it began hurting worse and worse. He went over there again and just said, man down, and fell out right then and there. And they finally brought him up in there. They came and seen him, gave him some x-rays and stuff like that. And come to find out, he had water on his lungs. And I believe he had took some x-rays before then. Eventually, I'll have him on here, let him tell that particular story itself. But he told me that when the doctors saw the x-rays and saw that he had a lot of water on his lungs, she went into the room and instantly hopped on the nurse's heads. Like, you guys should have been had this guy in here, So they called the ambulance or whatever and immediately sent him out to a hospital on the street, So I believe he stayed there. He stayed in that street hospital, and they're trying to figure out what was going on with him. He stayed there, I believe, 13 days. But after like the third or the fourth day, he had surgery. And when he woke up, I remember him telling me that, because they have a guard that's there that's watching you. Of course, he had life and stuff. So, I believe they may have your foot or something chained to the bed. But anyway, this particular guard told him, hey, man, we didn't, that first couple of days, we didn't even know if you was going to make it or not, So like I said, he stayed over there, I believe 13 days. And he was probably maybe 6 feet, 6'1", maybe about 100, and he might have been 155 pounds. He was already a thin dude, man. He came back. He had lost 30 pounds. They had removed a portion of his lung, and he almost died up in there. He almost died up in there, man. I can't remember if me or one of his homies on the yard or somebody had called his family and let him know what was going on, man, because like I said, at sometimes they can get extremely negligent. The doctor said, and I forgot to add, that night his lungs had collapsed. His lungs collapsed, and he couldn't breathe. He was going through a whole lot of discomfort and stuff. And like I said, had he not went over there and fell out, more than likely he probably would have lost his life. So yeah, that it just all depends on what institution that you're in, and how the healthcare is being passed out, how the convicts are being accommodated and stuff like that. But it's definitely a tricky situation. And one thing that I hated to do all the time that I was incarcerated was get hurt. I didn't want to get my finger bent playing basketball, twist my ankle, because any California prison, I don't care whether it's a level 1 up to a level 4, they're all extremely spontaneous when it comes to violence, man. Violence can break out at any moment, and some of those level 2s and 1s can be more dangerous than the level 4s because of the lack. Sometimes they lack the organization that or the structure that maybe a level 4 may have. But at the end of the day, you still have violent, aggressive convicts in there. And then sometimes, they have more, since the security is more lax, they have a better access to more weapons, tools, all types of stuff. And so it definitely can get tricky up in there, man. But, it's best to try to stay out of prison. Like I always tell people, man, when I worked up there when I worked up there as a porter in the hospital ward, I've seen a lot of dudes come up in there, man, and pass away. And initially, and it was crazy, right? Because initially, I would literally, my work days was Monday through Friday. Like I told y'all, they had 2 separate dorms up there. Well, they had a few different dorms, but they had, one dorm for the people who wasn't going to be there long, and then they had also some hospice rooms where basically, you may have had a week or so to survive. Man, I would leave sometimes on Friday, and the dude would be in those dorms where you're just kicking back and chilling and going home soon. I'd leave on my Friday, come back on Monday, and the guy would be down there in one of those hospice dorms, and they'd have him on, they'd have that line going through and have that medicine running through. I can't think of the word right now that would basically just just soothe you until you pass away. And I'd be like, damn, man, what's going on, man? What happened, you know? So initially, I literally thought that they was up there killing those dudes, man, you know. But it turned out that a lot of people, for whatever reason, failed to go to the doctor in a timely fashion, or go get things looked after and taken care of, failed to go get checkups and stuff like that until it was too late. So by the time they did go to the doctor, the cancer and stuff was so far ahead that it was really nothing that the doctors could do, man. I never forget this one brother. He came through there, man. He was probably in his mid-50s, man, and he had a liver disease. And he told me, he said, man, I ain't gonna let this liver stuff beat me. He was always upbeat, always smiling. Man, I ain't gonna let this liver stuff beat me. This stuff ain't gonna beat me, man. Man, I came back, you know, he told me that maybe about 2 or 3 weeks later, you slowly started seeing him get worse and worse. He was losing weight, you know, he was moving much slower. Then maybe about a month or so later, like I said, I left on my Friday. I came back. They had him in one of them rooms on the morphine. That's the word that I was looking for. They had him in one of them rooms with the morphine running through him. You know, now he's really just laying there waiting to pass away. And yeah, about 2 or 3 days later, he passed away. For those who may want to know what happens in those situations, sometimes you had a lot of convicts. You know, some of them had life, some of them who didn't have life, and some of them volunteered their time to come up there and sit with those guys who was in hospice, who was passing away, who may have wanted a friend or somebody around, you know, while they was going through their final moments, their final hours, man. And so, yeah, that was something that was tough. That was something that I didn't want to do. They asked me if I wanted to participate in that program, and that's just something that I didn't want to do. You know, I didn't want to sit there with a person in their final moments, man, in prison and stuff, you know. But yeah, it just all depends, you know. It all depends. I've seen a lot of the guards in that particular ward neglect, disrespect, and even get physical with some of those people who was up there. There happened to be one guy in particular. He probably was in his early 70s. This dude probably didn't even know he had been in prison for the last 5 years, maybe 5-10 years. He had dementia. He didn't even talk. You know, we would have to actually feed him his food when get the spoon and give him his food, man. This was a little black guy, maybe about 5'5", 5'6", maybe 125, 30 pounds at the most, real frail, you know. Like I said, he had dementia, didn't know where he was, either dementia or Alzheimer's. They had him in a cell. You know, they had a hospital bed in a cell. And for whatever reason, one day they happened to let him out so the porters could go in there and clean the cell, because he would urinate on himself and use the bathroom on himself. And for whatever reason, he walked toward one of the guards and maybe tried to swing at him. Now, this particular guard had to be at least 6'3", maybe 275 pounds or whatever, man. The guard reared back and hit the old man and knocked him down. Just so happened a white nurse, she seen it. She wrote the guard up. Only thing they ended up doing to the guard, they moved him from that particular prison, which was CMC East. They moved him to CMC West, man. So, you know, yes, all of the nurses up there wasn't heartless. You know, you had some of them who did have compassion. You know, you had some of them who did care about the individuals that they was working with, but it wasn't always like that, you know. So, like I said, it's just the luck of the draw when you're dealing with the California prison health system. You know, it's extremely sometimes it can be extremely cold. You know, I did see dudes, like I said, get cancer treatment, get hepatitis treatment and stuff like that. But it was always, you know, more times than not, a tedious, meticulous process. You know, nothing happened fast like you would need it to happen. You know, you didn't get that type of immediate treatment that you would get if you was on the street. Now, of course, you got some people out there that are going to say, well, never go to prison, that's what you get. But, you know, everybody should be afforded health care, man. And that's just the fact of the matter, you know. But anyway, that story right there was for all the people who constantly ask me about the health care in the California prisons, you know. So, like I say, later on, I'm going to give you guys that story when I was actually working up there in the as a porter in the hospital ward. I'll give you that story pretty soon. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.